Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my show. I'm your host, Diana, award-winning and best-selling author, Fire and Ice, The Journey of Transformation in the White Within. You can find out more about me on my website, dianabelleros.com, as well as download today's show and the past shows on iTunes. Please comment. Let me know what kind of a guest you want me to invite on my show, so I can find out the right person based on the topic you would like to be covered. So today we have a musician. Her name is Kim Reilly. Kim Reilly's SeaSide Fragments featuring All-Star Ensemble covers Ace classic Ha Wong. Feat members are Reilly, Ambrosia, Clarence, Clemons, Temple of Soul, and John Ford Coley. SeaSide Fragments is created and produced out of the love for the music and musicians who wrote, created, and produced it in the 60s and 70s. Each track is carefully thought out, yet recorded in between sound checks and shows, and are collaborations of friends and artists from these decades and tracks. Each song was recorded in 1 to 2 takes. All musicians live in the studio together with no rehearsals or a planned structure, only what is in the vision, finally mixed and mastered to reflect the analog vinyl era of music. And she's with us today. Hi, Kim. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on my show. We cannot wait to learn about you and your music.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and, of course, about your music?
Sure. Okay, so I started in the music industry about 20 years ago. And I started working as an artist manager, and I just kind of grew from there. Began a company about 5 years later on my own, and just started artist managing and working with a lot of, Grammy artists and national musicians touring the world, and just really love the industry and love the work of it, love the business side of it, and got very much involved with every aspect as of today. I work in artist managing, producing shows, studio work, photography work. I have an agency now, a full booking agency, which I just strictly use to produce shows with. There's nothing in the business that I really don't cover as of today, so I've kind of came a real long way in the business itself.
Can you tell us a little bit about your new song, Ha Wong?
Sure. So my new song came about as a while back. I was recording a project for a client, and I was in the studio, and I love it so much. And as I'm not an artist really per se myself, although playing keyboards at a young age, I decided I have so many visions of music and how I think it should be recorded and programmed and played and listened to and distributed, and I decided to go ahead and do my own project. Why not? I said to myself, and I'm a 60s, 70s person, so everything that I agree with in the business and adore in the business stems from the 60s and 70s, obviously from the Beatles and Elvis and things like that. So I decided to take some of the classics from that era and that decade from the musicians that had created and produced it and remake them into a different, just to put a different spin, a different vibe on them, utilizing some of the other musicians from that era that I work with, to date, and just wanted to kind of see if I could make something work like that, and it ended up taking off and flying. And this was the first track that I thought of to do. Paul Carrick is an absolute genius, and Ace was a great band, and everybody knows it. And it was just something. The track itself, How Long, is actually referring to a music entity, a group of musicians that were performing together back then, and the bass player was going out and playing, I'm assuming like some other gigs and dates with some other bands, and then coming back, and he wasn't telling anybody that he was doing that, and that's the story behind the song, and I love the story, so I chose that song, and that's how that song got started.
Where people can find you and the song, if they want to buy the song, what are the media places?
Well, the song's not for sale. It's going to be for download, free download, as of November 5th, and you can be able to download that through SoundCloud, through Amazon. It's not being distributed as a for sale item because it is a labor of love. There's really not any finance involved with making or distributing the track. So it's just for everybody's enjoyment to listen to and to understand the concept behind it. And there was also a YouTube video out there, so it can be digitally downloaded for free. SoundCloud, Amazon, it can be viewed and listened to as well through YouTube.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to find out about 60s and 70s and what you were able to create. Why did you decide to work? To work on the songs 60s and 70s. What made you do that? Where this love came from?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in 68, and at age 5, I was listening to artists such as Jefferson Airplane and Elton John and these kinds of artists at a very, very young age kind of tipped me off, and then I started becoming interested in, I wasn't listening to the kids' records, the children's records that I should have been listening to. I was listening to these artists that were coming out. And those decades, to me, just kind of paved the way for music in general. I believe that the Beatles were put here for that short time to kind of, give everybody else a tool to go off of. I think that a lot of the way it was recorded and produced and the artists that the creativity back then, and just what spun from those decades, I don't feel like will ever be replicated. I think the business and the industry has changed so much now over the last 2 or 3 decades. I mean, there's some great music, there's some great musicians, don't get me wrong. Everybody has, creativity still. It was just for some reason in those decades, that's what stuck for me, and that's what I grew up with, and that's what kind of planted seeds in my soul for music. Was those artists in those decades. The one beautiful thing about what I'm accomplishing is the fact that I'm taking the artists that I work with today that have been around, that are now celebrating 40 and 50-year anniversaries. They're still performing. They're friends of mine. They're people that have done shows for me that I've produced or I've worked with, and they're just coming into the studio. I'm having those different artists recreate the tracks of some of their friends and colleagues from back then, some of their music, and putting like my spin on what I would take as a creative aspect of the track, and turning it into that song, but with my own spin on it, utilizing the artists from that same era. So that's kind of the point of SeaSide Fragments, is taking fragments of my history, my music career and friends, all the artists that have Grammys from back then, and putting spins on their, other artists' music. And I don't know, it sounds strange. It's probably something no one has ever really thought to do, but it was my vision, and I thought it was a neat concept, and everybody has agreed to help me, and that I've asked so far. So I'm blessed with that, and we're having a blast. I'm literally putting these tracks together in between a sound check and a show. So the artist is in town with me, and I say, hey, I'm going to put you in the studio. I want you guys to give me a rhythm section on this old track. And it's not rehearsed. It's not planned out. They're just coming in the studio and taking 1 or 2 takes, and I'm getting a rhythm section out of it and then building around that. So it's really unique the way it's happening. It's almost like one of those things. It's like, just in the moment, like it just happened. It's not planned out or rehearsed or scheduled to be. So that's kind of another reason why I'm doing it this way as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Usually the spontaneous things, are the best things. So
yes.
This is incredible, not rehearsing constantly and, making sure the song is going to come the right way. The music is going to come the right way. So this is incredible.
Thank you so much.
What? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What is the biggest star, the biggest celebrity you worked on? Can you tell us a little bit about your encounter?
I don't, I have a hard time putting a biggest or a smallest musician on any label like that, because I think everyone in their own right is just as good as the next. That's just how I feel in my heart. But I can say one of my favorite, one of the people that have struck home to me, and the several times that I have wanted to walk away from the business, because it is a hard business, especially for my end of it, that has helped me stay in it and has really kept me going and made me believe. His name is Reilly, and he's the original founding member and drummer from Ambrosia. And he and his wife, Mary Harris, are, to me, just the picture of what the industry should be like at every standard. He is one of the most talented musicians. He's underrated. He doesn't have near the recognition that I feel that he should. And he has done, Grammy-nominated work, and he continues to play. He continues to push. And he's probably my biggest mentor as far as the business goes, as far as, working in the business. I adore him.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, what if stars, because I live here in Los Angeles, who haven't been recognized the way it should be. Right now they're on stage here in Hollywood Bowl, and you have no idea how many people go to see them and the wonderful things I'm hearing about them. So I can definitely relate to your story. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes. There's a lot of great. I've worked with so many. The list is so long. Great musicians and higher. I don't like to say better than or whatever, but more recognized. Has larger audiences. I currently work with a musician that tours with Hall & Oates, and that's a pretty big show. I also work with Steve Rogers, who is Paul Rogers from Bad Company. It's his son. And that's a big show. I work with a lot of people that are really, really making a splash even today. So, to put a label on one or the other for me is very hard, because I think everyone's almost just as good, as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opinion when it comes to music. I agree with more so with the way things are produced. Like, sometimes now I can't even go and sit in a concert setting because of the lights, the production, the strobe lights that go on, the things that we didn't have back in the day. I produce a concert series called An Intimate Evening With, which brings the artist, the audience into a room of a setting of like round table seating and an LED wall, and they get the history of the band. They're up close and personal with the band. It's a higher end ticket, but it gives people an experience that you can't just go and get at a very large, 2,000-3,000 seat or 20,000 seat show. You just can't get it. You feel like you're right there with the artist, and the artist communicates directly with you, and it's almost like a music experience instead of just seeing a concert. And that's my passion in the business. That's what I'm currently doing.
Wow, that's incredible. I wish I could see it. Where are the places where you are going to have concerts like this? Can you share it with us?
Places. Well, I'm located in Florida. So as far as my produced shows, I keep them semi-local to Florida. Sometimes we go up through the East Coast, but I have currently partnered with a horse track casino, very large area down here, complex called Gulfstream Park. And they have a big, beautiful room upstairs that holds about 650. It's a perfect setting for what we do, and so I'm in the process right now of putting an entire series in there, covering the next year, which should bring us about 20 to 25 shows through there just alone, and produce up in New York and Carnegie Hall and some other venues up the coast. We do that as well as out west too. Some shows go out in California, so. Just depends. And I've even sent an artist or two over to the Albert Hall, and that's been a really cool experience to be able to advance and do shows in the Albert Hall. And I've put an artist through Australia, so I kind of work all over the world. But for the most part, where I'm at today, I'm just enjoying what I'm doing here and putting these intimate evening shows together with some of these artists that are still left from those eras.
Do you have any intentions to work on the 80s music, some of the musicians from the 80s?
I do, believe it or not. I have some friends that come from the 80s, and I agree with that 100% as well. I may. It depends. I mean, if it comes across my board, I do it. Obviously, there's a lot of people that like the 80s, 90s. Like right now, as far as our versatility with Gulfstream, we're doing, some rock, some classic rock. I'm also doing freestyle dance. I'm also doing a Studio 54 show. I'm doing a country show. And we have Bobby Caldwell, which is more of a jazz, funk type of a show. So I'm very versatile with that, coming out of the 80s, 90s. There's some artists in there that are, the freestyle shows are all 80s and 90s. So I do. It's not that I don't. It's just that my heart is directly set. This project is reflecting the 60s and 70s era of music, the SeaSide Fragments. But my personal produced shows, I'm versatile with.
I think slowly some of the era is coming right now. Everything goes in a circle, I believe, and probably someday, we're going to listen again 60s and 70s music. So it's not like something is not going to happen. Yeah, that's true. Can you tell us why you decided to produce? Where is this love for producing?
Why I decided to? You mean the tracks? The tracks?
To be a producer.
Or the shows?
Why is this love? No, just being a producer. Why? How did you come up with this?
Okay, so twofold. I'll answer it twofold for you. The producing of the shows is I chose that because as a booking agent, people book in a show, and they, it's a percentage of the show. They book the show in, and then that's the end of it for them. They typically walk away. They're, it's up to the venue then. It's in the venue's hands, and I don't like the concept, so I decided to take it to a level of I'm not just going to book the show, I'm going to produce the show. So if I have an artist that comes through, people will hire me to physically produce a show. Like I go right down to selling all the seats, marketing, promoting, advancing, making sure the production, the engineers are intact, which don't happen often, that doesn't happen often anymore. Making sure everything from soup to nuts, turnkey, happens properly. That's what made me become a producer. Opposed to not being so sure how it's going to end up. I want to make sure the band, and the venue and the buyer and the promoters and everything happens in sync and everybody wins. There's a whole, it's a whole chain of events that has to happen to make that a huge success. And if one person or one entity of that circle isn't intact, it doesn't go off as well as it should. So as a producer, I oversee the whole project, and I make sure that the show from soup to nuts, the venue does well, the band has a great show, the engineers do well, everybody has a great show, and that's my job as a producer. So I choose it that way. It would actually personally drive me nuts if I couldn't do it that way. I couldn't not know what's going on and not be sure if everything's going to run smoothly. It would make me nuts. So that put me in a producing standpoint. As far as the recording studio and producing goes, I did that just from working inside the studio, knowing the people that I know, seeing the talent that I'm around, enjoying the music that I love so much, and said, well, why not? So, am I the greatest, producer in the studio? Not really, but I know what's in my vision. I know what I like, and I know, what things I think sound good. And I love the vinyl, and I love that era of music. And so it's organic, it's raw. It's like, if everybody produced live in the studio, it's like going back to the, the midnight specials and things like that, and the whistle stop shows, things like that to me is great. And we lost all of that through these years. We just lost it over the decades, and that's where my heart is. So that's what made me become a producer on both sides. Yeah,
when you love what you do, this is the most amazing feeling, the most amazing thing, and you're very good at it. And as you said, you need to have a vision, you need to know what you want, and you're doing incredible work, and you're doing so much work. I just cannot wrap my head around it. So I
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you share with us where people can find you if somebody's listening to the show and says, hey, I want to work with this lady, I think that she's the one to help me, with my music or anything I do. Can you share with us the media places?
Sure. I don't advertise too much because I've stayed busy by the grace of God. I've stayed busy all these years, but I have a website, and it's SeasideMusicMGMT.com, and my information is there. And I have to say, I also work with a worldwide podcast, which is one of the best podcasts out there. You can listen to I'm going to say we have about 250 interviews now. It's like a behind the musicians podcast, and it's great. And that is called Inside Music Cast. You can find me there as well. That's InsideMusicCast.com. And like I said, there's several podcasts and interviews in there that bring you behind the music scene with these artists individually. So we have several interviews there to look at. And, those are the two places you can find. Also, social media, SeaSide Music Management. I have a Facebook page. I'm not a big tweeter, so I don't have a Twitter, but I do have Facebook, and Inside Music Cast has Facebook as well. And, so that's everything pretty much is inside of that. And, there's always Google, when you Google, you come up with all kinds of things. So those would be some outlets.
Since my show is empowering and inspiring women, you're a very successful businesswoman, and you're doing so much, and you could be an example for so many women. What is your advice to the women who are doubting themselves right now, who have so much talent in themselves? What is your advice so they can start doing what they feel like they should do?
Wow. We've all been there, and my advice is just don't ever stop, don't ever look back, and just keep pushing forward to what's in your heart and what you believe in and what you'd like to do. There's nothing, and I am living proof of it, there is nothing that you cannot do if your mind and heart is in it. And my other thing I would say to everybody is the integrity and the passion and the honesty and the kindness that you have, to me, is everything. And that's how I feel I landed on SeaSide Fragments, because I have put out, you get back what you put out. What goes around comes around. And in this business, there's a lot of people that aren't doing the right things. If you have a vision, you have a goal, you set the goal, you go for it. You don't let anybody bring you down, bring you backwards. And if you always do the right things, and even though it doesn't seem like it's working, eventually it works. And just keep doing the right things at no matter what expense. And I'm a Christian girl, so I believe that God has his hands in everything. So you just have to have the faith, believe, and keep going, and don't ever stop. And you'll get there. Everybody will get there.
Thank you. That's amazing advice. I love it. There is a timing. When the right time comes, things are going to happen. You just have to be patient.
That's right.
Yeah,
but keep working at it. Don't give up. Just don't give up. Follow the dream.
Yeah. It could be difficult route, but you need to keep going.
That's right. There are so many things that should have held me back, without going into anything personal. There's so many reasons why not for me, and so many things that should have made this impossible for me, and I've done nothing. But the more I almost think I'm going to give up, the more positive comes back at me. And so there's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't be where I am today, and I'm here. So if anybody feels like they can't make it, I'd be the last person that they'd want to talk to.
And I'm going to ask you another question, because I work on domestic violence and you're a woman and abuse, and October was Domestic Violence Awareness Month. What are your thoughts about domestic violence? What kind of advice you gonna give to the women, because there's so many women suffering right now? What is your advice for them as a woman?
Oh, geez, that's a terrible thing that goes on. That's a reality. And I would say to the women, well, first of all, it's never their fault. To always, get the help, get out of the situation, and understand that nobody is in control of you but you. And you have to get out and protect yourself. Women are powerful. Women are smart, intelligent. There's no greater, everybody's an equal. It doesn't matter your genre, your age, your color, your race, whatever it is, everybody's an equal. So I think women in domestic violence feel the person that is on the other end of that is making them feel like they're less than and scaring them. And that's how I feel. And they have to realize that there's nothing they have to get out of that, and there's nothing to be afraid of, and that's all manipulation, and you cannot let somebody do that. We have one life, and this is it, and you have to choose it for you. You have to love yourself enough to get up and walk away and get out and live your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love this. We have only one life. That's it. That's what I'm telling everybody. You need to, make the best of it and go after your dreams. After you go, then you eventually get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us today? Something we didn't cover?
I feel like I mentioned, the what and the why about the project, and I think that pretty much it was covered. I mean, I love what I do. I know that the industry is a hard place. There's a lot of very talented struggling musicians out there, and one thing that I will say is the live performances are so important. And I'm seeing a turn in the industry with a lot of different entities coming to play, and it's making it almost impossible for really talented people to get their music out there and get performing. Every artist wants to perform, and you have to buy a concert ticket. That's my one thing. Buy the concert ticket. Sometimes they're expensive, but there's always a show that you can afford. I have so many people that will, struggle to get tickets. Find a show, buy the ticket, because the concert ticket is what is supporting the entire industry, the artist, the venue. Everything has a cost to put a show on, and I can't encourage enough for everybody to buy the ticket and support the musicians, because we all listen to music. Everybody listens to music. I don't care if somebody said to me, I've never listened to music, I wouldn't believe them. So everyone's listening to it. Everyone's getting enjoyment out of it. No one's going into a movie theater and watching a movie for free. Nobody's going out to dinner and eating dinner for free. This is entertainment. Everybody fruits from it. Everybody enjoys it and loves it. And I wholeheartedly believe that everybody needs to buy a concert ticket and go see these performers live. They're genius. They're great people. There's creativity, and we're all getting benefit from it. So let's just support all live music and all musicians.
Yeah, that's very important, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication to create this music. And there is audience for every musician, for all kinds of music, because all musicians are created differently. They have different vision, right? So,
that's right. And they all deserve to be heard, and they all deserve to be, have their music out there. So, whether you're purchasing, the downloads, like nowadays we have like the Pandoras and, the streaming music and TVs and things. And to me, that's almost taken away from, directly from an artist, because what do they need to go in and record for if you can't sell the music? I mean, people are listening to music radio for nothing, and the radios have, gone by the wayside somewhat, and everybody's listening to the streaming music, and it kind of pushes aside what it's all about, in my opinion. So we need to make sure we keep it rotating. It's like the economy. You need to make sure you keep it rotating. So, any live shows that people can see, and any music that can be bought and plug it back into your system, listen to a CD, download the music, pay for the downloads so that you can listen to them. That's so important to keep the music going, because it needs to keep going, or I'm afraid for the next couple of decades. I don't know where we're going to land if the technology and the industry keeps going in this direction, which would be sad.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. And we're at the end of the show. Can you just again share the media places where people can find you and get in contact with you?
Sure. The websites are SeasideMusicMGMT.com and InsideMusicCast.com. which streams 24/7. There's a radio, Inside Musiccast Radio is attached to there as well, streams 24/7 on air. So those are my websites, and you can reach me through, all the contact pages are there, and you can reach me directly through either one.
If an artist wants to submit their music to you, what is the way to do it?
Typically, I get an email through either social media or either my SeaSide Music Management Facebook page, or it comes directly through the contact page of the website. And I do have a team of people around me. I have one of the best engineers in the world. His name is Reilly. And I also have a partner on SeaSide Fragments and in the business as well, and his name's Jim Williamson. So they're my partners, and we are hands-on with everything. So you will reach one of us.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for sharing all the wonderful work. And thank you for helping and supporting artists.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real honor. Thank you so much for taking the time for my project and my career. I really, really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure talking to you. Please continue to do
you
what
too.
you do.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye-bye. God bless.